So, Kevin, let's talk about the issue about legality of this. Some areas, I believe, even now where you live, Boise, Idaho. I think Boise, my hometown, has made homelessness illegal. I think that they did make it illegal, and I think a lot of
I
conservative states have done that.
Yeah, I think it's as far as being illegal, you can't have a complete set up, stay up. So if you have a tent, if you have items, you need to pack them up and take them somewhere for the day. There's definitely a few homeless throughout Boise, as I've seen them, and as we're traveling throughout the state. It's not near what it
Right.
is in Los Angeles. I mean, it is every now and again you see someone out here that's struggling, but it's not even the same people. I mean, these guys out here don't appear to be the same wildly drugged out, mentally ill people that you're getting out there.
Right. And
And
maybe that has to do with
for what
access, do you think? Because Idaho is like, Idaho, you can't even get it's the lone state where you can't even get CBD or any marijuana. There's no medical marijuana. The state is not going to be allowing that anytime soon. Ultra, ultra conservative state. So do you
yeah
think it's access?
sorry.
Go ahead.
If you're in it for the drugs, this is a pretty bad place to be homeless at. The weather is not terribly inviting to the homeless,
Right.
especially this time of year. So it leads me to believe that if you're homeless out here in Idaho or Boise, anywhere, there are other reasons. It's probably more mental illness. It's job training, separation from family. There are so many other things that get people on the street. But if you're looking for your fentanyl fix, you're not going to find it here like you would
Right.
anywhere else.
Right. So maybe access to drugs has something to do with why bigger cities have more homelessness because they do have
Sure.
easier access to gaining these types of substances and whatnot. And also probably just larger population. You're going to have larger numbers of people with mental illnesses or drug abuse, I suppose. I don't know. Um, but the thing about making it illegal, so this is also a subject that has been hotly debated because people will say, well, what are you going to do? Throw them in jail for being homeless? It's not, they can't help that they're homeless at that moment. Like the homelessness itself can't be a crime. But on the flip side, the argument is, well, you don't have to put them in jail. If the state, one of the arguments is if the state or the city or wherever makes homelessness a crime, then it would be potentially incumbent upon the state to find a fix, like take them someplace. There's got to be a place where they can go legally, where they can be.
Sure.
And it would
Yes.
cause this sort of like, you can't be homeless here. Here's the place you can be. This is where you need to go. Don't come back here. And if you keep coming back here, we're going to keep dropping you back off where you're supposed to be. And, like there's kind of this, they don't have to go to jail, but maybe it could be someplace else where they can be and be overseen by social workers, get treatment or something along those lines. Of course, that does cost money,
Sure.
but maybe in
Well,
the long run,
we
less
ha-
money. I don't know.
Yeah, money is not the problem. Like I said, $16 billion has been spent. So I don't think it's the funds; it's the allocation of the funds. That's how we're doing it.
Yeah.
For me, if someone said, Kevin, here's your magic wand, how would you solve homelessness?
Yeah.
In California, the first thing I start doing is enforcing the laws, specifically with drugs. I'm going to make it unbelievably hard to get illegal drugs in California. If we have to bring in the National Guard for a time, that's fine. The thing what drug dealers are going to do is not do it there anymore. Drug dealers are the ultimate business people. And if something gets too difficult, if they're not making money there anymore, they're going to go elsewhere. The drug users will follow them. They'll go. They want to go where the supply is. The drugs are going to take a lot of people. If you just said, go elsewhere with the drugs, guess what? Take it up to Oregon. I don't care what you do up there. Don't do it here. I think you would have 100,000 people that would run for the northern border in California overnight. They want the drugs. The people that are left over, these are the people who we can now go, okay, these are the people that want help. They are the people who have the mental illness, who have a lack of job training. I mean, how many of the people out there, if we said, look, let's get you sober, let's get your meds taken care of, let's teach you how to weld, let's teach you how to be a plumber, let's give you a skill and make you a productive member of society again. It's no longer acceptable to just sit on the street
Right.
and do drugs. Go elsewhere for that. And like I said, we don't have to make new laws. We just make it really, really hard. And then all of a sudden, Oregon is going, what is going on here? Why do we have 100,000 new
Right.
drug addicts in our state? We need to make it really hard for them to do that. And then they chase them up to Washington.
Right,
And
but
then
let's be
Washington,
but let's be somewhat realistic on this, because
sure,
here's the thing. California, let's put it this way. Let's say all of that was done except California was the last and would likely be the last state to do this. So
of
everyone
course.
else in the whole country made it really, really difficult, meaning they all came here. And now they're all here because this would be the likely scenario of that. California's last. California says, "All right, fine. We'll now start to enforce these rules." But there's nowhere else for them to go because all the other states have already done it. So what do you still do
Sure.
with all of these people?
Well, I think you have 49 out of 50 proofs of concept. We just said, look, California, I know you want to be California and and make the absolute wrong decisions every single time, but look what we did everywhere else. We've made this not a problem anymore. You can continue to make it a problem. We just, kind of going back to the honesty and being adults, we just finally have to go, look, this isn't what we're doing anymore,
Yeah.
or commit, or just say, look, you know what, drugs are essentially decriminalized, which they did in Oregon, and overdose deaths, skyrocketed by like 37%. um, or we be adults and say, look, we're not going to do this anymore. We need to slow the fentanyl, slow everything else. I mean, it's fentanyl. It's not even heroin anymore. It's
Yeah.
all fentanyl out on the streets that's the major cause, and we can't enable. And that needs to be done everywhere. There isn't going to be a safe consumption site. There's not going to be harm reduction, quote unquote harm reduction, that's going to fix this. It's just going to be adults.
Why don't we I think it's a good idea to have them have some place to go, where it's like, "Look, you can't be homeless. It's illegal. We made it illegal." I think we should. I think we should just say, "It's illegal. You can't be out on the street. We're not gonna put you in jail, but here's other places where we are gonna take you." There's an encampment that we've built shelters where you can safely be reasonably safe in a small little, tiny home type thing, a room. There's social workers trying to help you. And maybe that is where they go. I mean, I don't know if this idea would work. And maybe you tell me where the blocks are on this idea. But in my mind, I would think set up this encampment where they go, a social worker assesses them or a number of social workers. And from there, they get committed to maybe a mental institution that's going to help them overcome their mental issues, especially if they're highly. And of course, there would be, I would think, some sort of like checks to ensure that the people who are truly mentally ill are making it into the mental institutions and not people that we just don't like or people that we just think, oh, you're crazy, when really they're maybe slower, not all that, they're not as intelligent or something. And so, and they're not crazy. So making sure that the right people go into those. The other people, they go to drug rehab programs. They have to get clean. Others, I think it's a great idea to send them to education, skills places where it's like, look, because the military, you have to be. The problem is, it's like anybody could join the military supposedly, but you can't be over a certain age, and a lot of the people who are homeless are now over that age, so they can't join the military, or they have a disability, so they can't be in the military or
Mm-hmm.
something. So something else like a job training corps where it's like, look, you're not crazy and you're not really on drugs. Maybe you're smoking a lot of pot, but you can go and get a job, learn to weld, like you said, we need infrastructure built. So you go to this training camp, they house you, they feed you while you're there, you learn your skill, and then they integrate you into a job program to help you get on your feet that then gets you where you need to be. But of course, that all has to happen after as you mentioned early on in this conversation, they have to separate the term, they don't even use the word homeless anymore in this state, right? What do they call them? Unhoused or unsheltered or
Unhoused,
unhoused. Yeah.
urban campers,
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Right. Which we'll get to that. Um, but they first need to identify the difference between, like you said, somebody who just is transitionally homeless, like they couldn't make rent that month, so they got evicted, and now they're evicted and homeless. But that's not the same as Utah actually separated this out, and they solved their homelessness problem for those that they called. It wasn't the transitional homeless. They said that's an ongoing, always problem, but they were able to solve their like perpetual. I forgot what the name of it, but it's like when you're always homeless, like you have a real
hmm
homeless issue. So we'd want to separate the terms, right? And say, okay, there's the transitional, and that's totally different category of people. But then there's like the just perpetually homeless people that we have to deal with. And then separating them out and saying, okay, some of you, you're committing a crime. I guess you go to jail. Some of you go to a drug rehab. Some of you go to a mental institution, and the others go to a work camp where you learn skills that you could support yourself. Why can't we do that?
Yes, it's because it just makes too much sense. In California, there aren't hundreds, there are thousands of homeless nonprofits, and you've got all of these guys. A lot of them are legitimately trying to do great work, but I always describe it as you've got 1,000 people trying to knock down a giant redwood with a bunch of toothpicks, and they're just needling at this redwood, and it's never going to come together. But if you can harness all of those people, all of these groups together, and turn these toothpicks into an axe, we have a chance of taking on this gigantic redwood. And it's harnessing all of those people and bringing them to an area like you're suggesting. I love that idea. I've thought about, okay, take all the decommissioned military bases up and down the
Right.
state of California, and if you can send 10,000 troops out to the middle of the desert, and within a week, you've got housing, hospitals, facilities, sewers dug, you've
Yeah.
got all of this infrastructure, most of which actually already exists on these military bases. And then, exactly like you said, huge triage process. We bring everyone in, everyone gets evaluated several times over.
Right.
And then, if it comes to a case where we're talking about a conservatorship or someone who needs to be, put into a hospital for the rest of their lives, there's monstrous checks and balances. There has to be,
Right.
going through the family history and talking to them and several people, because like you were saying earlier, when it came to COVID, I was not, I'm a medical freedom guy. I am.
Hmm.
So I'm the medical freedom guy also making a case for people being committed. I think it needs to be, gigantic. They're being committed for their own good.
Right.
Just like with homelessness, my entire drive for homelessness isn't because it's gross. It's because people are dying.
Right.
People are dying, they're suffering, and I would like to not have that be the case anymore. And I would like to fix it, because putting them up in a hotel for a night doesn't fix it. It makes you feel good because you spent $800 on a $79 hotel room with our tax dollars, but it doesn't fix the problem. If I can tell you a quick story about the moment that homelessness all kind of changed for me. I was working on Hollywood Boulevard at the time, and I'd seen the homelessness. This was probably back 10, 12 years ago. You drive down the streets, you see the tents and things like that,
Yeah.
but it just became the background of Los Angeles. That's
Right. It is.
was what it was.
Yeah.
But then I started working literally on Hollywood Boulevard, and having these encounters with homeless people all the time. And one guy in particular, this guy named Derek, who was just this gigantic 6'5", 6'6", huge hulking dude with just weird patchy shaved head, and would come into the business and just scream and whacked out of his brain. And we'd call the cops, and by the time the cops would come, Derek would be gone, and rinse, wash, repeat. We would constantly do that. And then I started talking with him, and slowly but surely, Derek and I would have these conversations throughout the day. And sometime he would tell me wacky stories about Star Wars or his favorite Amy Grant song, and depending on his lucidity would be depending on the conversation we'd have. And then one day he told me about how he used to teach rowing, teaching crew back on the East Coast. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh man, crazy homeless Derek had a life. He had a backstory, a family history, and whatever got him to where he is right now, it had to change. It didn't matter. He needed help, and then it didn't just happen for him, it was everyone else. So I'm driving down the streets now and I'm looking at these tents and they're all Derek. They're all people who aren't just drug addict slobs laying in their own needles and poop. They're people who fell on hard times, whether it was a choice they made, it was a choice somebody else made.
Yeah.
This is where they are now. They need help. That's it. I look at the ACLU and groups like that as nothing more than they're killing people on the streets. And if we really want to make an impactful change, that's where this begins.
Yeah.
This becomes a marketing campaign that the ACLU is killing people. And if they keep down this path, they will solve homelessness eventually, but it's because everyone's going to die. And I don't mean to sound, I'm not speaking in hyperbole. This is what's going to happen. People are going to die, or we can help them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. If you're on the right or you're on the left, you don't want to see more people dying on the streets.
Right.
You may have a different path to how you get to no more people dying on the streets, but we all want to get to that same spot. So I think if we can get to that leaping off point and getting everyone together on the same page, look, there's going to be wackos on the far left and on the far right that I'm not including in this equation.
Right.
But for the most part, 85, 90% of us are all on the same page with this. And if we all just, at least in this one topic, stopped fighting each other for the sake of fighting each other,
Yeah.
I really think we can make not only tremendous ground in the homeless epidemic, but then in other avenues when we go, guys, we worked so well together on homelessness. We saved so many lives. Maybe we can parlay this into other aspects of our society also. It's fixable if we want to.
Hey guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you like this segment. Now, you might be wondering, this seems like it's part of a bigger show. You're right, it is. The full show is at KimIversonShow.com. So what you're watching is just a clip. And if you want to get the full experience, then you got to go to KimIversonShow.com. The show airs Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. That is where you can watch the full show. Here, you just get clips. So click on the link down below, go to the full show, enjoy. Otherwise, I'll see you next time right here. And be sure, once again, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.